Now, throughout the campaign, we saw the Republican Party's inability to get with the program, with Newt Gingrich calling Obama a food stamp president, Mitt Romney using words like self-deportation. It was part of the Republican Party's old Southern strategy to woo white voters, but as the Washington Post recently pointed out, it backfired on them, and it did so big time. The nation's first black president finished more strongly in the region than any other Democratic nominee in 3 decades, underscoring a fresh challenge for Republicans who rely on Southern whites as their base of national support. Joining me now in the spin room is conservative pastor Rev CL Bryant. He's the former president of the Texas NAACP and maker of the movie Runaway Slave, and Mayor Reed, a Democrat from Atlanta. It's great to have you both here. And Reverend Bryant, I want to start with you. You have been critical of the Democratic Party, and in an interview with The Blaze, you actually blame them for anti-Republican sentiments. And you go on to say it's not really that they're turned off to it, it's that the progressive liberals have done such a darn good job of using the black pulpit and saturating black minds that the word Republican and conservative are words that they have been taught to fear. It has been the Democrats who have stood in the way of progress. Sir, given the results of this past election, do you think that 93% of African Americans voted against their own interests?
Yes, indeed I do. In fact, there is a culture of dependency that has been groomed by the Democrat Party over a period of 50 years, a distortion of history even over that 50-year period of time. Many black people have forgotten that it was Democrats who stood in the doorway of the University of Alabama to block black students from going there. It was Democrats who Eisenhower had to send the National Guard out to Arkansas in order that the Little Rock Nine could go to school in Little Rock. And the history of black people in this country, even the political history, those who were first elected to Congress and to Senate, were all Republicans. And the first Democrat elected to the Senate in the United States was Carol Moseley Braun, and the second one was Barack Obama. So the history of the Republican Party has always been that of freedom for all people, and that's what we try to convey in our movie, and we are very successfully doing that, The Runaway Slave.
Mayor Reed, a lot of talk
that's the message.
Reverend, excuse me one sec. Mayor Reed, there's been a lot of talk about how the Hispanic vote has helped the president win states like Florida and Nevada, but what's gotten less attention is how the African American vote gave the president higher vote totals in states like Georgia as well as Mississippi. When you hear what the Reverend has to say in regard to the Democratic Party modern day, do you believe what he's saying?
Well, you know, if this wasn't such a serious topic, I think the Reverend's comments were laughable. Obviously, the runaway slave didn't work that well because 93% of African Americans voted and supported the president. The president won minority groups really across the board, not only Latinos but Asians. But he did it because all of these people are very smart, and they understood who had their interest at heart and who didn't. What we know from the Reverend's comments and other people's comments, such as John Boehner and other Republican leaders, is that the Republicans are going to continue to practice the politics of subtraction. They offend women. They offend Latinos by saying self-deport. They don't respect reproductive and health care choices of women. They try to suppress the African American vote. The list goes on. And I'm actually satisfied as a Democrat because it means that they're going to continue to lose. They've lost Florida. They will not get it back. They've lost Virginia. They will not get it back. The only state they won is North Carolina, and they barely eked that out by 2 points. The president performed at record levels across the South for a Democrat, and the Democratic Party is going to continue to drive from Virginia through North Carolina, through Georgia, and maintain Florida.
Gentlemen,
and so what all of these folks are saying shows that they don't get it. So we'll just continue to beat them.
Gentlemen, I want to play for you what J.C. Watts, a former Republican congressman, said to me yesterday on the lack of diversity that is represented right now in the Republican Party.
I think the diversity and inclusion and outreach, I think it begins at the grassroots level. We have lost with every demographic out there except for white men, and I've been saying for 20 years that we've got to do a better job with non-traditional constituencies.
Reverend, how can Republicans do better with non-traditional constituencies?
by telling the truth about who they have been historically. That is what's been distorted. The truth of the matter is this, and Mr. Reed did in fact say, well, the president did well through the South. But the truth of the matter is this: take away this president's skin color and take away the race card that is played so often with this president. And there's really no reason for black people to vote for him, or Latinos in that frame as well. Because when you look at the unemployment rate among those two demographics, when you look at the poverty rate among young white females, there is no reason for anybody to have reelected this president in those demographics except for the emotional issue of race. And this is what I'm saying, and this is what we say in our movie, Runaway Slave. The Democrat Party, the progressive liberals, have been very successful in co-opting the emotional issues of the day. The truth of the matter is, those very issues have led the same group of people who voted this president and voted for him religiously into a mindset and to a culture of bondage.
Mayor Reed, I want to give you the last word.
I think that those are consistent with Mitt Romney's belief. But the fact of the matter is, President Obama's never played the race card, and the Republicans invented the race card with their Southern strategy. Folks voted for their interests. It wasn't because of the president's race, and it really was across the board. So the Reverend can continue to stay on this path. It's the path to defeat. It's the path that won't involve more support from minorities, and Republicans will continue to lose, and their candidate will be on vacation with Mitt Romney.
Gentlemen, we have to leave it there for now. Atlanta Mayor Kasim Reed, Reverend CL Bryant, I really appreciate your time. Thank you. And we do have an update on a developing story that we've been covering throughout this hour. Republican Congressman Tim Scott just releasing a statement thanking his fellow South Carolinian Senator Jim DeMint for his service to the nation. Scott will be the only Black House Republican in the 113th Congress and is being floated by conservatives as a possible replacement for DeMint.